Greetings, fellow seekers of the unknown. Before we embark on this spine-chilling journey into the spooky cabinet, we have a special recommendation for you. For the full immersive experience, we urge you to grab your headphones, turn off the lights, and never look back. Imagine someone accidentally falling into a vat of meat at a factory, or human body parts being processed into food products. It sounds like a horror story, but there was a book that revealed this kind of reality and forever changed the food industry. The story begins in 1906, when journalist and author Upton Sinclair published the novel The Jungle. Sinclair went undercover in the Chicago meat packing plants, the heart of America's meat industry, and what he found was horrifying. Dangerous working conditions, unsanitary practices, and, most shocking of all, contaminated food. The Jungle is a novel, but it's also a powerful investigative exposé of this industry. These plants were filthy, dark, and hazardous. Many workers, mostly immigrants, faced extreme risks every day. Sinclair describes how workers frequently lost fingers and hands, and worse, these incidents didn't stop production. Canned meat was processed and shipped with these extra ingredients mixed in. In one of the most infamous scenes, Sinclair describes how workers occasionally fell into large vats of meat that were boiling or in the process of being rendered. Once a worker fell in, their remains were rarely retrieved in time, meaning that their body was often boiled down along with the meat. As Sinclair writes, sometimes they would be overlooked for days, until nothing was left but bones. This horrifying situation led to public outcry, as people realized that human remains could end up in the products they consumed. Sinclair highlights how many parts of the animal, including those not fit for consumption, were routinely thrown into the grinders and mixed in with higher quality cuts. This would include diseased parts, tumors, and other remnants. If a worker lost a finger or hand in the machinery, it would be ground along with the rest of the meat, making human flesh an accidental ingredient in products that were then labeled and sold as quality meats. Sinclair recounts how moldy sausage meat was doused in borax and glycerin to hide its foulness, then repackaged and sold. These horrifying practices left readers horrified and eager for reform. Sinclair describes in gruesome detail how rats would infest the factories, crawling over the meat and defecating on it before it went into the grinders. He writes that workers would even lay out poisoned bread to control the rat population, but when the rats died, their bodies, along with the spoiled meat and even rat droppings, would be scooped up together, ground into the meat, and canned. Sinclair's graphic description revealed the complete lack of sanitary standards and the disregard for the consumer's health. Also, in one passage, Sinclair describes how cattle and hogs that arrived at the factory sick or dead from disease were still processed for human consumption. There were no standards in place to discard these animals, instead, they were sent through the same process as healthy animals. Workers were instructed to cover up any signs of disease or decay, sometimes using chemicals like borax to mask the smell and appearance of spoiled meat. These practices were shocking to readers and emphasized how desperate these companies were to maximize profit at any cost. While much of the book focuses on the unsanitary food practices, Sinclair also reveals the mistreatment and exploitation of immigrant workers in the industry. Workers faced brutal, life-threatening conditions, with little regard for their safety. They often lost limbs, faced gruesome injuries from machinery, and received no compensation if they were injured. Most of these workers were immigrants who couldn't speak English well and were hired because they could be exploited easily. At least nowadays it's very different, right? When The Jungle was published, the reaction was immediate. The public was outraged and horrified. People couldn't believe what they were consuming. President Theodore Roosevelt received thousands of letters demanding change, and after investigations, he found that Sinclair's claims were true. The impact was so great that in 1906, Congress passed two landmark laws, the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act. These laws required factories to maintain basic hygiene standards and allow regular inspections. This was the first major food safety regulation, leading to the establishment of the FDA. Though Sinclair wrote about America, the jungle had a global impact. Other countries began looking more closely at their food industries and implementing health and safety standards. In the end, the book raised awareness about food safety and workers' rights around the world. While The Jungle led to essential reforms in food safety and workers' rights, similar issues haven't disappeared entirely. Even with today's strict regulations, cases of contamination, unsanitary conditions, and poor treatment of workers still show us you can't trust the beef trust. The industry still carries some dark secrets. And you? Will still open your delicious can of Spam? Tell us in the comment your worst experience with canned meat. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more spooky stories from the cabinet. Thanks for watching.